Hey y'all, it's Falcon here. This podcast is a bit different than the others. Jordan and I met up down in Florida and decided to record an off-the-cuff podcast. Given I'd just driven 18 hours and we'd spent a day on our feet, we were pretty dragging and absolutely in no condition for a properly structured episode. The idea was to talk about some of the toy airplane lines we'd grown up with, but it quickly devolved into a sleep-deprived giggle fit. Before we go any further, I do want to remind you all that I have new merch in Hellions Etsy. The link to that will be in the description below. Without further ado, let's talk about toy airplanes. Alright, so this is a special episode of the Fighter Tales podcast. And unlike most episodes where Jordan and I are normally on, opposite sides of the East Coast, or north and south, we're actually in the same room eating pizza rolls.
We're eating pizza rolls that Falcon exploded.
Yeah, I microwaved them.
Very fittingly, on Pearl Harbor Day, he exploded the pizza rolls.
Oh god, it is December 7th, isn't it?
The Japanese blew up the Pacific Fleet.
I have to cut this all out.
And Falcon exploded the pizza rolls. But that's okay, because it leaves us the bagel bites. And the bagel bites, the flat tops, are like what's going to win us the actual war.
The flat top. You're right. It's very metaphorical.
This episode is sponsored by the letter G.
Giselle, come out here and do your sponsorship. Oh, asleep. Okay. All right, cool. I'm going to finish my Yangling. Anyway.
Chaos.
Chaos has already ensued.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about today, Jordan?
We're talking about toys.
Yeah. The toys we grew up with.
The toys we grew up with.
The toys many of you probably grew up with as well. Jordan and I being airplane fanatics as children,
Born in the 90s.
Born in the 90s. Acquired a lot of pot metal in the shape of airplanes.
I remember asking my dad, what is die-cast metal? At the dining table, holding this blister pack of a Matchbox Skybusters F4 Phantom. That was in the Showtime 100 paint scheme.
I remember that. I had that one.
Yeah, and I was tearing into the corner of the blister pack. He was like, yeah, it means that there's a mold that they made of metal, and they cast the airplane out of that mold. That's the die, and they're casting it. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. So this Phantom was made from a negative shape that is shaped like the opposite of this Phantom. And he was like, yeah, basically.
As opposed to casting a die like rolling a die in D&D. But yes, we were talking about the favorite toys that we grew up with. Now, we just finished this pizza roll here.
Was this a mistake? Should we not be eating pizza rolls as we're recording a podcast?
I don't care.
Okay.
Here, we gotta get that pizza roll ASMR. Hold on.
Alright, I'm gonna eat a pizza roll right now.
Oh, God, it popped.
If this was a video form, it would basically be a mukbang.
Anyway, our Christmas special is off to a great start. So, this really is in the perfect holiday spirit, because I think a lot of you will find die-cast toys under your tree if your parents know what you like and you ask for it. Or you just go to or if you just go to Walmart and buy some. Actually, no. Walmart doesn't really stock die-cast planes anymore.
Big Lots does every once in a while.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. If you're fortunate or unfortunate enough to have a Big Lots in your vicinity.
Okay. That's good to know. What do they have? The
Maisto Tailwinds, yeah.
So
I almost walked home once with the F104 in the Southeast Asia camo. They have one of those.
Oh, nice. Mm-hmm. I used to have one of those in
the orange and silver.
The orange and silver, yes.
Yeah, the QF104.
Yeah, I had that. And as a kid, I used to watch The Right Stuff. This is when I was 5.
Oh my gosh, we had the exact same experience with that toy.
Pretending you were Chuck Yeager trying to fly up to 104,000 feet.
Yeah, yep.
Oh my god.
Holy crap.
We are literally the same person.
Wow.
Yeah.
He's literally me.
So what do you know about these Maisto toys? Are they do you know the history of who started making these?
So they don't have retractable landing gear. They're just these every toy basically has the same landing gear shape, and they're this weird soft plastic.
Yeah.
And if there's ordnance, they're pretty crudely done, and they're kind of removable, but once you remove it, it's basically gone. It's lost forever.
Yeah.
So
it's never gonna stay on there again the same way.
And my favorite was the A6 because the A6 had like 2 pairs of missiles that looked like the Sidewinders on like an F-15.
That's right. Yeah, you could pretend it was an A6F.
Yeah, yeah. But it had the little tram bubble underneath the nose.
It did.
So it was like a tram intruder.
They started making those in the late 90s, I think.
I think so. Early 90s.
Yeah, and the line has changed over time, too, because they started off with, like, your classics, your Su-37, your F4, your F-14.
The Su-37 was later.
Was it later?
Yeah, Su-37 was later. I think they had, like, some World War II stuff. At some point, they were branded G.I. Joe. And they had G.I. Joe on them. Yeah, I had a Comanche that I bought from Fry's Electronics. What a throwback. And that was branded G.I. Joe on the stabilizer. And like I was really stoked about it because I was playing the Nova Logic Comanche games at the time.
Great games, by the way.
Yeah. So I was like, I gotta have a Comanche. And my dad was like, fine. So like I begged and begged, for this Comanche, and then he was like, okay, fine, you can have a Comanche. And some other later ones, I think they eventually added an F-35.
Yes.
I think they eventually added a Predator.
So you can do your own drone strikes in the comfort of your own home as a child.
Yeah, exactly. See, like, there's, like, several steps of when the global war on terror influenced our playtime. Like, initially, like, early GWAT was, like, when everyone had their aircraft carrier.
Yeah.
Because, like, that was, like, what was on the news. Like, aircraft carrier battle group steaming into the Middle East.
I had that, the plastic CVN...
68.
68, yep.
We had the same one. It came with the F-14, F-18, SH-60,
S3 Viking.
S3 Viking, EA-6A.
Yep.
Was that it?
That was it.
E2, the Brown E2.
Oh, that's right. It had a Brown E2.
The Brown E2.
And you modified yours.
I did. We talked about this in a different episode.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it all goes back. Back.
This, the Motor Match Nimitz Carrier is a recurring character on the Falcon Fighter Tales podcast.
I've been trying to find a new one. Like, I found my old one, but it's in kind of shit condition.
Yeah.
I've been trying to find a new one of those. Like, not new, but, like, just another one. I can't find any good deals on eBay for them.
They're kind of sought after.
They're kind of rare now,
When I brought mine to a Goodwill sorting station, it's actually a really interesting story. The guy who took it in was a veteran who served on S3s on the Nimitz back in the day. And when he saw it, he was like, "Oh, it's the Nimitz." And then he had like a little moment with my toy carrier, and I was like, "Okay." My mom was like, "Give me my tax form," but like it was kind of cool that like he got to have that moment of like, "Whoa, I feel fucking old as balls right now," because this kid's like giving me a toy that he doesn't want to play with anymore of a ship that I once served on.
So, and the Nimitz is like 50 years old at this point.
Yeah,
too, and
it's just like 2010.
Wow.
So, yeah, because like I played with that. I played with that carrier like throughout the early stages of the GWAT, and like, I never had a Predator toy. I wasn't old, like I wasn't young enough to have a toy Predator. Did you?
At that point, I really wasn't playing with toy planes.
Yeah.
When the Predator was around, I remember seeing it, and I remember thinking, it's kind of odd that they're making drone toys now. Like it seemed kind of dark.
Yeah.
Given some of the climate, but then you got to remember it's kind of just another warplane,
right?
And there's no underlying political ideas behind it, but it just, I don't know, it just always had this like weird thing. I'd be flipping through, I'd see my old standbys, the F-14.
Yeah.
You see some the F-6F Hellcat come out, the Corsair with the yellow wingtips.
Yeah, right.
And then you'd see a Predator on the shelf, and I'd be like, why is this here?
Yeah. So some of those are kind of funky. Like I remember the Tomcat was like metallic silver and green camouflage, and it didn't have moving wings. The wings were fixed.
Yeah, they were fixed at about
it's like the half open position.
Like 50 degrees or so.
Yeah, the maneuvering position. Mm-hmm. So like it was perfect if you were playing with it as a kid, because it would be the attitude that the wings would be in the way that a kid would be playing with it if the airplanes in the kid's hands was a real airplane. I'm not making sense, but I think I am.
Yeah, no, it does make sense. I don't think they had that logic in mind when they were doing it. I think they were just like, oh shit, this toy has variable geometry and we don't have the budget to make a swing wing variant. Let's just do it halfway.
No, so the Skybusters F-14, the wings were fixed closed, and
that was kind of lame.
That was kind of lame. My Corgi F-14 had moving wings. That was cool as shit.
The Corgi line is kind of more of a collector's line, though.
Yes.
That wasn't, yeah.
It wasn't... really. So okay, so like I would rank these like diecast toys. Like you have your absolute like toy tier toys, Skybusters, Matchbox, or Maiso Tailwinds, Dynaflight / the Motor Max ones. We talked about this earlier. There was a variety set of those Motor Max planes that made you think that you were getting every airplane that was involved in the Pearl Harbor attack, but you actually didn't. Like instead of a Zero, a Val, and a Kate, you got an Oscar, a Judy, and a Kate. And the Judy had the Kate's markings. They gave the Judy the historical markings of Mitsuo Fushida's like Kate that he attacked Pearl Harbor with, and the Kate was the plane that was labeled the Judy was actually a Kate, which is kind of fucky. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
and it came with the Ki-45 Toryu also.
Yes, it was camouflage.
Yeah.
I'm sure the gentleman at Pearl Harbor just saw the meatballs and didn't care what it was.
Yeah, and I remember it came with a F4U4 for like all your devoting needs with the radar. On the
the radar with the wing. Yeah, it was the Night Fighter variant. It was the F4U4N.
Yeah, or 5N. I don't know.
It was the 5N.
Yeah.
The 5N, yes.
And the canopy of that one was kind of weird. It was
It was dipped in silver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it had a Mustang.
A Mustang.
The Mustang.
It was a B.
It was a D.
No, it had the Razorback.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, it had the Razorback and it had bombs on the wings.
Yeah.
And invasion stripes.
And it had a C-47.
Which was like way out of scale.
It was like a tiny C-47. And it had the Memphis Belle.
Which was also out of scale.
And you had a B-52. Did yours come with the B-52? Mine came with the B-52.
Yep, I still have that.
And the A-10. It was a B-52 and an A-10.
I lost the A-10, but I still have...
And the A-10's wings, they were like...
Yeah, they were bent up. Yeah.
Man. I remember. So I bought that set at a KB Toys.
That's where I got mine.
No way.
Yeah, because this must have been like 98, 99.
Okay.
And I got it for my birthday one year. I remember this birthday very fondly because it was my first like kindergarten birthday because I would have been like 5.
Okay.
And my mom, because me being a little airplane nerd, wanted to do an airplane themed birthday party for me, which is adorable.
Yeah.
She had like a board with like little holes cut and hangers painted on them, so kids would throw like little balsa wood gliders into them.
Oh.
And I had a cake which was shaped like an airliner with like juju fruit like as windows plugged into the side.
That's amazing.
And then I got that toy that year, and I was just like, this is the best thing ever, and I want to go back.
You peaked.
Yeah, I peaked 25 years ago. I peaked.
that was the best birthday party.
Nothing has come close.
Well, there was another birthday party that I'm not going to mention.
Yeah, and it wasn't my birthday either, but it was someone's in this room.
Okay. Yeah, that was a pretty good birthday. I just learned about this birthday. Yeah, but anyway, this so it's funny because your mom gladly bought you that toy,
yes.
Right? So my dad, when I brought it up to him at KB Toys, my KB Toys at the Great Mall in Milpitas, California, also was stocking the Corgi diecasts.
Yeah.
So he was like, "Why do you want those? They look like shit. Get these instead." And he hands me a box of like Corgi. It was a set of Corgi World War II fighters, and it had a P-38, a Corsair, an A6M, Mustang, Hurricane, and a 109. And
that's a hell of a set for Corgi.
Yeah, and it was the same price. No, it was cheaper than the set I wanted.
Oh my god.
But stupid old me at the time, I was like, "But Dad, like this set comes with the P40, and I want the P40."
Well, yeah, okay, fair enough.
And he was like, "Ugh, fine." So he actually ended up buying that Corgi set for himself. I think the Corgi set ended up being like $9.99, and the set that Falcon and I got, it was like $14 or something.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
But like the big deal was that it cost more than the models that were better quality.
Yeah, I mean the Corgi makes some high quality.
They still do.
Yeah. They put out a Top Gun Maverick line recently.
Oh, did they?
Yeah,
Shit.
they put out the F-18 E and F and a new F-14.
Oh, wow.
They haven't improved the tooling or anything. Not that they really need it.
Yeah.
Corgi.
They must have made new tooling if they had the F-18 E and F.
They first made that back in like 2005.
Oh, okay.
They had an F model that they put out, and that was the first Corgi I ended up owning. I got that and I got an F-14A in Jolly Roger's markings.
I have that train one.
Because that's the only F-14 anybody ever cares about, right? Anyway, when I was watching Final Countdown, that would be my little airplane I would whoosh around the room.
I think I had two Corgi F-14s.
Okay.
I had the VF-84 one, the Jolly Rogers one, and I believe the Desert Storm set that came with an F-14 and F-16,
I remember that.
Humvee, and an Abrams. I believe the Desert Storm set came with one that was in VF-32 markings, but I can't say for sure.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I'm gonna,
look it up. We have Google. I mean, we have all night. Yeah. So Corgi, if you were looking to just get some nice diecast aircraft, just have on a shelf. They come with stands. The gear's retracted. The proportions are generally pretty good, and they're not expensive. The Top Gun Maverick set I think is $20, and you get two decent diecast planes. Also, I want to mention.
Yep.
That is VF-32.
Yeah.
Those are the Gypsy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, yeah. I want to mention, the Maisto Tailwinds toys, which probably are the gold standard.
I would say so.
It's a standard to be met when you're making diecast toys.
Yeah.
I remember at Walmart when I was a kid, you could get 2 for $3, and now you'll be damned if you can find a single one online for less than 10.
Yeah. A couple of those are really, really good.
Yeah.
Standouts for me personally are the Mirage. There was a blue Mirage 2000 that had a pretty good looking mold.
I had that one. Yeah, that was a good one.
The A6 was a pretty good looking mold. The SU-37 was my only flanker for years.
Yeah, that was my bad guy toy. I had that and then 2 Matchbox MiG-21s, and that was my bad guy.
Did you have the finished MiG-21?
No, I had the one that was black and it had the yellow yellow lightning bolts on the wings.
Okay, it's nice. Sick.
Actually, I did have the finished one, the camouflage with the blue roundels
with the leopard paint on the side. Yeah, I had that one.
Yeah. Dude, we have the same fucking collection.
I think it's because we grew up in the same decade.
Yeah.
Which Matchbox Tornado did you have? If you had one?
I never had a Tornado.
Okay, so my sister and I, we went. My mom bought her the Tornado, or she got the F-14 and I got the Tornado. And it was the flight a British RAF flight test paint scheme, red, white, and blue. It was a really good looking scheme for the Tornado, and Elizabeth's Tomcat was red and white and silver. I don't think it was based on any squadron, but it was cool. Their Blackbird, if I remember correctly, the Matchbox Skybusters Blackbird had NASA markings on the tail.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and that was neat.
Yeah, Skybusters, a lot of the times they wouldn't use realistic paint schemes. They would just kind of do whatever.
They moved away from that.
Are they doing realistic stuff now?
No. When we were kids, they had realistic issues.
Oh yeah. Now,
but then sometime in the maybe early 2000s, they moved away from that.
GWAT.
Yeah. They had a B1 that looked really good, but it didn't have U.S. Air Force markings on it. It was green.
Matchbox seemed to move away from doing war toys
pretty quickly
around that time.
Yeah, because the Forces of Valor ones, those were the ones that stepped in to fill that void.
Yeah,
remember?
Yeah.
I knew the writing was on the wall when the Forces of Valor M113 was made of plastic.
Yeah.
But for years they had a really high quality tanks, armor, 72nd scale armor that you could buy at Target for $5. They had a line of 72nd scale airplanes also. There were Stukas, Corsairs, Hurricanes. I want to say they had a P-40 at one point, the Pearl Harbor P-40.
Yeah, Matchbox's whole thing back in the day was
do you remember the Matchbox 72nd scale collectible models?
Yeah,
the Aviation Hall of Fame series.
I've got 2 of the 148 World War I fighters.
Oh, holy shit! Okay,
yeah,
those looked really good.
I've got the DR1 and I've got the SPAD. They're really, really nice display pieces.
Those are your gateway into Hobby Master. If you as a child splurged the $20 to get the Matchbox collectors fucking American Flying Ace series or Aviation Hall of Fame. I bought the Illusion Tiger P-40E. That is your gateway into being new Hobby Master F-14 for $89. Yeah, I'll do it. That's what plants that seed.
Only $89.
How much are they now?
They're over 100 easy.
Oh,
now.
jeez. Okay.
Yeah.
I know, like Caliber Wings makes like really high.
Caliber Wings does some good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hobby Master does great stuff. Forces of Valor had some pretty decent.
Forces of Valor had good
jets,
stuff.
like before. I think I'm not sure who they sold their molds to. But I swear to remember like F8s at one point.
Wow.
Like near the really end of like Forces of Valor, F18s maybe.
That's really cool.
Who else had that? Dragon? Did you ever have any of the Dragon stuff?
What did they make?
They made P-51s and F-16s. So it's interesting because like in Taiwan, like there used to be like a Discovery Channel store.
Yeah.
And they had like this little section of diecast airplanes, and I remembered like always seeing these Dragon F-16s and Mustangs. And then maybe Spitfires. Huh. I know Corgi, Matchbox, they all had Spitfires.
Everybody makes a
Spitfire, yeah.
Everyone makes a Spitfire, a P-51, and a 109.
Yeah. It's true. What point did you start to build your own models?
So I always separated the diecast stuff from models as like two completely different things.
Okay.
When I was a kid, like I'd have my little diecast stuff that I would play with.
Yeah.
My dad would build like... Okay, so here's a story. I don't remember where he got it from, but my dad got a U.S. Air Force like C-130 crate that was full of model kits.
What?
I still have that crate. It was like a pallet crate, like that you would shove into a C-130. But it was full of like 148 and 172 models that one of his like work buddies had just been stashing in there for years. And he was like, I'm not going to build these. I'm going to give them to you. Yeah. They were all like, Revels and like, Arfix and stuff. So not really good stuff. But then he would sit down with me and, my dad he never really painted them or anything. Mm-hmm. He never like went hardcore with them. But he would sit down and like build them with me and, teach me how to like glue stuff and just...
That's wholesome.
Just be patient.
Yeah.
And, then I would hang them up on my ceiling.
Yeah.
And my models would be separate from that. And eventually I was like, every now and then, if I wanted to practice and like make a model, I just pull one out. And it's like, I wasn't damaging anything.
Did you ever like put a dent in that stash?
Oh, it's all gone now.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool.
Yeah. There were some nice ones in that actually that I regret building. There was a Revel 172 B52H in there.
Oh, that kit.
Yeah, and
the one that had like the X15 in there, or no?
No. This one was a bomber configuration. Okay. I kind of fucked it up. and I come to find out years later, it's like a $70 kit.
Oh wow.
I regret that. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
There was also an XB70 in there.
Oh, the AMT Erdl kit.
The AMT Erdl kit. And I fucked that up. That's a rare kit now, too. It's a very rare kit.
Yeah.
Granted, I'm like 10 at this point. This is like early 2000s.
And he didn't say you couldn't. He gave them all to you.
Yeah, and the one thing my grandfather got me was there was a set of an SR-71 and a U-2.
Oh,
172 scale, and I forget who made them.
Testers, maybe?
It was probably Testers.
Yeah.
He made sure I built those right. Like I didn't paint them. We just didn't know yet. Mm-hmm. We just weren't that hardcore.
They were probably molded black anyway, right?
They were molded black. Yeah, it was fine. And then we would just paint the canopy, where that needed to be painted. Right. That was it.
I used to use a Sharpie on those.
Yeah, as you do.
Yeah.
We had a 132 F-117 from that.
That's sick.
Block. And I remember that one looked really cool when it was done.
Yeah.
And we had it in the garage because we were moving some shit around. And one day it fell off like a platform and fell under my mom's van. And she backed out over it and destroyed the shit out of it. And I was I was so upset for like a week.
The meme of, the two buff arms crossing your mom's van and Serbian anti-aircraft gunners. Send it to your mom. Like, see if she remembers.
Oh my god. She probably doesn't remember. It's been like 24, 25. Well, no, it's probably 20 years now at this point.
Moms have really good memory. You'd be surprised.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, models was always like a separate thing because I would never really play with them.
Yeah.
Unless it was like super like properly in scale and it like worked really well with my diecast stuff.
So that was the thing too. Like the higher quality diecast stuff, like the Matchbox Aviation Hall of Fame stuff, I played with them, but I broke them pretty quickly to realize that they weren't toys.
Yeah.
And then once I realized they weren't toys, my brain just sorted them into the same category as like models. And my dad was an avid modeler. Like he'd been building models when he was like since he was a kid, and so he got me into it. But he got into my head pretty quickly that like models are for looking at and toys are for playing. So like he bought me toys like the toy airplanes because he didn't want me touching his models.
That makes
playing
sense.
With his models.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So and like eventually when he was like, well, yeah, well, like if you want a cool model like this, then you have to build it yourself, and like you have to know that you don't play with these. You know. The little diecast corgis, like the little like shelf box scale ones, those are great for bridging that gap because they're really good looking like models, but you could kind of play with them as if they're toys.
Yeah.
But I remember like when he first started to get me into like being a model snob, like this kit is better than that kit because the panel lines are engraved versus raised. You know, this kit is better than that kit because it's made by a company called Hasegawa, and Hasegawa is a company that makes the best airplanes, and this company called Tamiya makes the best cars and the best tanks, you know.
And then you pass that on to me, and now I just hate making models.
Yeah, it's pretty bad because like my friend will like offer like, you know, you go on Facebook Marketplace, my coworker's like, hey, I used to build models. Yeah, you know, you build models, you know, these like wholesome like 50-year-olds. And then I'm like, sure, what do you got? And then they like show me a picture on their phone, and it's like a stack of like the monogram and like Revell kits, and I'm just like, oh, I'm good.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of to the point where like time is valuable.
Yeah.
And I don't even like full disclosure. I've got about 300 kits unbuilt, like in my stash.
You're never gonna finish them.
I'm never gonna finish them, but like in my head, like when I bought them, I had a plan for each and every single one of them. You know, I knew what markings I was going to paint it in. I knew what decals I was going to use. I knew what aftermarket I was going to buy for this. So it was like, oh, like 2 years ago, you know, 2 years ago, year and a half ago, 2 years ago. Yeah, well, year and a half ago, you know, at the start of this like 30-day military operation, you know, me like on every other virtue signaling modeler, I bought an ICM or a fucking Zvezda, like SE-27, and Fox bought Ukrainian markings, and I was like, yeah, Slava Ukraini, you know, and like it's sitting there, haven't touched it. To be fair, I haven't built anything else since then. Well, I built that adversary F-16, and
which looks really good.
Thanks, but like just the time it takes to build a model, I'm kind of at the point where it's like I don't have time to struggle with models that aren't good kits to begin with.
Yeah,
that's where the snobbery comes from. It's not like I don't like Revell kits, or I don't respect the old like monogram Century Series fighters, which are really detailed.
They're good
kits.
molds. They're just raised panel lines.
Yeah, my dad actually made side money in college by rescribing those.
Well, before we go into this, we should probably describe to our users what raise and recessed panel lines are, because not everybody knows. Like I just want to, you know, we're just out here like speaking another language.
Dude, our rad scores are like through the fucking roof. It's like Falcon and I out here like flaunting our chromosomes. So panel lines on the model kits are the panels that separate like the actual panels and components on a real aircraft. So in real life, you don't really see them. You know, I work with fighter jets every day, and I never really notice like different separations between panels. So realistically, and like this is like somewhat controversial. Like how dare you say something so controversial yet so brave? Realistically, it doesn't matter, because on any airplane would I have panel lines anyway. But a model without panel lines looks really lame and unrealistic somehow. Yeah, it'll be like a mahogany weird desktop model that's devoid of all surface texture.
Yeah,
devoid of all detail.
Or like an early like CG render from like the 90s.
Right. Like, and you know it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah.
So I think the presence of panel lines, even though you might not necessarily see, like, obviously there's some exceptions, right? Like on a Navy airplane, you are going to see the panel lines because filth collects in the panels, you know, and the space between them. But like, you know, B-52 or like C-130, you know, you look at them and you don't see like panels, right? Like, so I think like in a scale modeling perspective, it's almost an artistic directive to have panel lines because it gives you something to add detail to, something to like put your your wash in, and it like gives it depth.
Yeah.
So
when you have those as raised panel lines, which is how old kits used to be, due to molding limitations back in the day,
right? Because basically, it's easier to carve into a mold with like if you carve into the mold, then then the panel line that's left by the injection molding process is a raised line. If you add material to the mold, then you get a recessed line.
Right.
But it's easier to carve into a mold than to add material onto it.
Yeah. And so what you do if you have a raised panel line is you take a little scriber. It's like a little like curved blade, right? Like,
sure. Yeah.
And you just run it across and just cut the lines out.
Right. And then you sand off the raised lines.
Yeah.
So now you get recessed lines all around, or you can just leave them. Like most people honestly left the raised panel lines the way they were.
But
my dad would rescribe them
because he was hardcore.
He was hardcore, and he still swore it's like these monogram kits had really good looking cockpits. They had raised details in the cockpits, like all the little buttons and knobs were molded, and so he really liked that. And the shapes of those monogram Century Series fighters was spot on. I think they were called blueprint models back in the day because they were like using the actual blueprints of the actual airplanes.
Yeah, because this is before CAD or anything, so
right. So like they were like really, really accurate. So if you take the time to rescribe these old monogram kits, you could still get like a really good representation of like an F-102 or 106 out of these things.
That F-106 Rebel kit is still so good.
Oh really?
Well, the one with the really detailed cockpit.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah, they sell that at like Michaels still, right?
Yeah, Michaels or
Hobby Lobby maybe.
Hobby Lobby has them. Dude, Hobby Lobby has like the old like AMT B-52 144 kit with the X-15 on it.
Nice. I love the Hobby Lobby.
They have such weird like old school kits that just come out of the woodwork,
and they have like those like American cars that nobody asked for.
Yeah. Oh yeah, let me get my GTO. Like,
yeah,
but yeah,
it's surprising where these things come up now.
Yeah. I was gonna say something about models. Oh yeah, so going back to the panel line thing, I've noticed the bigger the model is, the less prominent the panel lines are. Like generally speaking, sure. Like. But as you get smaller, even into like the miniature scales for like miniature wargaming, that's when the panels pop out the most because they add like more detail to the model and make them pop on a table.
Yeah,
it's really interesting to like how the eye works. I think it just is like it's just how our eye works. We need something to fill in the gaps to make it look more realistic to us.
It's interesting because, and also if you look at like different manufacturers are so like my Tamiya 48 scale P38, the panel lines on that were finer than the panel lines on my Airfix 72nd steel airplanes.
That's interesting.
I am pro panel line.
Yeah, they look really cool.
Yeah, and like they give you something to do. I remember. Well, like anyone can make, as long as your model's got recessed panel lines. You can add something to it by just giving it a panel line wash.
Yeah,
and then suddenly it looks 10% less amateurish.
Yeah,
So I think
you could do that to toys too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Which is what we're really supposed to be talking about.
Anyway, This Christmas, starring Josh Hartnett and Kate Winslet.
No.
Staring at the page before you open up the dusty window. Sorry, I just I don't know why I just like transitioned into
Pearl
a 90s
Harbor
movie.
Pearl Harbor sucks.
Yo, it was Kate Beckinsale. I mixed Titanic with Michael Bay's version of Titanic, where the Titanic bombs Tokyo in the end.
Oh man. So toy planes.
Yeah. Did you ever play with any of the Lego Creator plane sets?
I had one.
There was one that was like vaguely Blue Angels F-18 shaped.
I had one when I was really little. I vaguely remember it. I not really. It might have even been Mega Bloks. I really don't remember.
Mega Bloks had a Mustang and an F-16.
They had an F-22. I had like some vague F-22 looking thing.
Hell yeah.
I don't remember where it came from or who made it, but I remember having one.
It was a building block set, and it was F-22 shaped.
Was it?
Right?
Building blocks?
No. It wasn't a building block?
It could have been. I don't remember.
I'm trying to remember what my first F-22 was. It was definitely the YF-22 that Maisto built as an F-22.
Dude, I love the YF-22. Like, I don't know why. Something about it. Like, it's angular, like, Gen 1 stealth look that's still kind of like Gen 1.5. So, the fact that they kept making toys of it, even into, like, the 2010s, just makes me really happy.
Yeah.
Even now, I don't think Maisto ever made an F-22A
Maisto never
proper.
made an F-22A, no.
They just slapped the A markings on.
They just slapped, like, Operational Squadron, like Langley. I'm pretty sure they made a Raptor 01.
I have the Raptor 01.
Okay,
yeah,
but I'm pretty sure they at some point they also made operational markings on the YF-20.
Did they really?
On
the YF-20, dude, that's kind of a cool alt history kind of thing. I don't know. I kind of like that.
I might be wrong.
Okay, no, you know,
but yeah, no, like that Maisto YF-22 was.
It's a classic. It's an American classic.
It's an American classic.
Even though they're not made here.
Top 20 American Christmas gifts of all time. Maisto YF-22.
Tickle me Elmo.
Tickle me Elmo. Big bass Billy Fish.
Pet Rock.
Nintendo GameCube.
Dude. The Maisto F-22 should be, like, inducted into, like, a plane or a toy museum. I
will say, though, the one that I ran into, like, you know, like, how when you went to your friends' houses and then you ran into, like, those, like, random-ass, like, Tailwinds toys?
Yeah, they would always have something you don't have and you could never find in the store.
For me, it was the SU-47. I had multiple friends that had the SU-47.
I'll give you mine.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah.
That came out of nowhere too. That was just like, and I always use that as like the final boss in my like make believe airplane scenarios.
Dude, you know, like the meme going around of Charlie Brown is waiting in the field for the Great Pumpkin, and that's Snoopy's lore is like some like cutscenes from Battlefield 1. it's like our lore of like playing with our toy airplanes as kids.
It's like Ace Combat Assault Horizon.
It really is though.
Steel Carnage. You remember that fucked up car we saw near Milpitas?
What?
You remember when we were driving around in your car? I'm sorry, it's one of those things where it's like you would have had to be there for it to be really funny.
Oh yeah, we saw this car that was like a mangled piece of like steel and like aluminum panels.
It was literally leaking oil out of the bottom, and we just like screamed Steel Carnage. And we followed it. We followed it for a bit and like played the Assault Horizon soundtrack.
I was blasting the Assault Horizon soundtrack out of my old Corolla speakers. like the mirrors were like vibrating. It was like
This guy's probably having the worst day of his life. He's probably been in an accident. He'd probably been in the worst accident of his life. It was trying to limp home while these two airplane nerds were following him, just blasting like this niche video game music.
Holy shit. Oh my god, I forgot about that. But now I remember it clear as day, yes. It was, yeah, dude, it was... It was on Calaveras heading back to my house. I remember that. You know, we were both just like, Steel Carnage.
And we were crying. It was like, just like now, we were just dying.
Holy shit. Yeah, like, you know how there's a meme of like the Honda Civic with the bump, like the dent in the corner of the bumper? It's like the Honda Civic that was like missing a quarter of the car. Like the back of it is like a crumbled can, like squished inwards. Like, dude must have gotten rear-ended or something by like a Willys, by like a Jeep. My man's got rear-ended by like a Volvo 240. Like there was like two possible things, right? It was like a Volvo 240 or like an M48 Patton, right? And like, it was like one of those two things, like crushed my man's like Honda Civic, and we're just like behind him.
It was probably like his mom's car, and he was just trying to get it home so he could explain. Like, half of the door was like hanging off.
Yeah, I was like playing fucking like I remember like scrolling on my iPod trying to find Fighter from Ace Combat Assault Horizon.
And we were making like gun burnt noises.
Keep shooting. Keep shooting, Major.
We were stuck in one of those like rail shooter cutscenes where we couldn't technically destroy it.
Yeah, my man's Honda Civic being kept alive by like plot armor
while it's being pummeled by 20mm rounds.
Yeah, that last dogfight in that game over DC, that was some shit.
Yeah. Have you seen my review of that game?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, I agree with it. I didn't hate it.
Yeah, it was
and like
fair.
it was cool that my friends at school were excited for it.
Yeah.
Like I had like normie friends that like weren't Ace Combat heads or anything, and they were like, "Yeah, that game looks sick," and I was like,
"Yeah,
yeah."
He just did a fist bump.
Yeah.
You can't see.
You can't see my fist pump.
This is one of those things where it's like, this would work a lot better if we were on camera right now.
It's like the opposite of like subtitles for the hearing impaired.
Jesus Christ. The viewing impaired.
Narration for the viewing impaired. Have you ever watched a movie with those on?
No, I've not.
Sometimes it can be kind of funny. I recommend Shrek 2.
We gotta find one of Top Gun. If it doesn't exist, we need to make one of Top Gun.
Words across the screen. Shaker sound. Dulling and then growing in volume. In 1969, the United States fighter... Screen fades to see there be the words Top Gun. Screen fades. It is a carrier deck. You are looking through steam and smoke from the catapults. An A6 intruder turns and you can see the fuel tanks underneath its wings, denoting it is actually a KA-60. A Tomcat. An F-14D F-14A Tomcat straddles the catapult. The jet blast deflector shield goes up as Harold Faltermeyer and Kenny Loggins or whatever, Top Gun Anthem starts playing. Suddenly Top Gun Anthem stops playing as the F-14 ejects off the catapult. The soundtrack transitions into Danger Zone by Kenny Loggins. Dude, I have this movie in my head.
I can literally, like, if I were, like, in isolation, like, in prison, I would be fine because I can just literally keep playing Top Gun in my brain on loop.
I was on a flight back home to Jacksonville on a business trip.
Yeah.
And the guy in front of me was watching Top Gun Maverick. And I didn't have, like, the sound, but I was looking at his screen.
Yeah.
I was, like, timing the music exactly in my head as it would appear on the screen. And then, like, in my head, like, when it was, like in the impact of, like, when the screen goes, Top Gun, like, I hit it. I was like, yeah. It was like when it goes like dum and the chime goes boom, because like when it goes boom, it says Top Gun and the chime goes boom. That's when the Maverick pops up, and I timed it exactly. I was like, yes, brain rot.
You know, I think when we're done with this, we just need to watch Top Gun Maverick again
In mute.